All right. Welcome to Resilient Voices and Beyond. It's a pleasure being here again with you guys. This is episode 14, and it's just been rolling. So I'm so excited. I appreciate you guys that have been listening, showing love and just doing great things and joining me on this ride. I have a very special guest here with me today. I was on his show not too long ago, and he really inspired me to kind of take this leap on doing my podcast and kind of highlighting and uplifting my own voice, and so forth. So without further ado, I'm gonna have him introduce himself.
What's going on, everybody? I am Cedric Riley, and it's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here today. Looking forward to engaging in this conversation in this vehicle that you've created, ready to rock and roll.
Thank you. Thank you. So, um, I don't know if you've listened to it, but if this is your first time out there listening, you guys know that I like to dive deep. I don't like to just bring people on here and you not know too much about them. So, before we get into Cedric's expertise and experience on the professional level, I like to, kind of get a sense of the person himself. So, Cedric, if you don't mind, can you give me a synopsis or a little bit of your story of what led you to be who you are in the foster care sense?
Well, it started with the lessons that I received from my grandmother, which was to iron my slacks, to keep family first, to keep school first, which set the tone for my overall attitude in life of achievement. Achievement was always on my mind. Achievement when it comes to growing into an adult, achievement when it comes to protecting my family, achievement when it comes to school for sure. And so shortly thereafter, it came to surface that we were living with my grandmother for a reason, which was my mother was having difficulty in her young adulthood. And so we, in the early stages of my life, watched ongoing confrontation between my grandmother and my mother. And that resulted in my mother taking us into her custody when I was about 5 years old. And from there, we really experienced a variety of life experiences, whether it be the drama of grown folks playing cards and having a weekly party, or just being sent outside all day. Go outside at dusk and don't come back in until dawn. There were many days where we did not catch the school bus. There were many days where myself and my brothers and sisters would just be outside riding big wheels, riding bikes, building clubhouses out of old wooden pallets behind a grocery store. We were the children in your neighborhood gardens. We were the kids climbing your trees, climbing your garages, playing cops and robbers and such, until it became obvious that we were missing too many days in school. And that's when the social workers began to pay closer attention to what was going on in my life. Now, my mother was the type of person who felt that she would be able to manage it all, whether it be taking care of myself, my brothers and sisters, while maintaining her particular lifestyle, without completing high school and without completing any sort of post-secondary education, and without any support from any of our five fathers. My mother just had this attitude that she could do it that way and that it would be okay. And so when social workers tried to step in, my mother responded with threats and told them, "Hey, listen, if you think you're going to take my children away, then you're gonna need the police and the entire group of police, army, whoever you might need to take my kids away from me." And so this was these were my formative years. Leading up to 6 and going into 7 years old. We lived in a condemned house until eventually we were placed in the foster care system. And the foster care system drew my attention to the reality that it wasn't just me and my brothers and sisters who were living that type of life. There were a lot of young people who had that type of experience with their parents and who are now in the foster care system. And I would say, given what I learned and the things I experienced, that the foster care system really impacted my direction in life, because here I am today looking to make a difference in the world, starting with the child welfare system.
Thank you. Thank you. The story is so impactful and is relevant to even myself, um, my mom being a young mom, single mom, at that, and me and my siblings having different dads. So, I can appreciate and honor your story for what it is. And also, just take little bits and pieces of, who you are, as a man and how you were resilient and used perseverance throughout that time. Um, my next question is kind of a little bit, further into that, how did transitioning, like as a transition age youth, look like for you? Where were you at in that stage? Were you placed somewhere? Were you with family? How did that look for yourself?
When you say transition age, what age are you meaning?
Let's say, 17, 18,
Right. So I like to look at that era of my life as almost my third my third life, if you will. My first life, which consists of my experiences with my biological family, really set a foundation for the way that I looked at things. But then there was my foster care experience between 7 and 12, which was a middle passage, sort of my second phase of a variety of different parents. But at the age of 15, I was actually adopted in a
Okay.
new city, in a totally new city, in a new environment. And so my ages from 15 to 17 was like where my life really began to skyrocket. I mean,
Okay.
in my particular case, I was adopted at the age of 15, and I had a very progressive mother. Her name is Yolanda Riley, and people out there who are familiar with me and my work, they might see her in my comments or in my supportive sections, or if you've really listened, you've heard me mention her as well. But she was very progressive. She also believed that I should be a high achiever, and so she got me involved in a lot of programs. She contacted places before I arrived and let them know I would be there, and to make sure that I was challenged and to make sure that I was really put up to the proper uh, to the proper tests wherever I went. She always made sure that the bar was set high and had an expectation that I would follow through. And so, by the time I graduated high school, I had over $150,000 in scholarship offers, and all of those essays and submissions I didn't do by myself. She was right there with me along the way. And what I mean by that is, if she was not as diligent and progressive and hardworking as she was on my behalf, not on, I mean, I would have had a stellar senior year because I was dedicating all the energy that resulted from my experiences into having a great day each and every day in high school. So yeah, I was involved in programs. I was giving it my all, but without my mom actually researching different scholarships, contacting different people who were running programs that I can get involved with, I cannot honestly say that I would have exceeded as much as I was able to succeed. And so much credit goes to her for me having $150,000 in scholarship offers. I was a varsity wrestler, varsity football player, school photo editor. I was a president of a marketing association called DECA and presided over 5,500 students. I won several academic excellence awards. Obviously, in that type of setting, I was able to get my driver's license, and I started cutting hair at that time. So my life was a very positive thing. I was in a positive space, and I was committed to a lot of positive activities for the most part at that time.
Okay. Okay. I like that. Like you didn't let what happened leading up to
Mhm.
being adopted and everything. And I'm pretty sure there was times, as a young teenager where Miss Yolanda was like, "Yeah, I'm challenging you, I'm pushing you." He was like, "I don't know about all this,"
Right, right, right,
but you stayed toward the mark and you strive, and it has paid off. You
right.
are an excellent advocate, mentor, role model,
Mhm.
and so forth. Um, so much inspiration in that. I hate to bounce around, but you kind of gave me, a tidbit there. You told me you had a first, second, and third life. So I want to go back to that second life. If you can expound upon that and kind of tell me what that was like, what that experience was, and also, were you with your siblings throughout that time?
So when we got placed in foster care, the very first night, we got separated into two groups. Myself and my two younger brothers in one group, and my two younger sisters in a different group. And that was dramatically different from what I was used to, because my brothers are younger than I am. They're the two youngest. And so when I lived with my grandmother, for the first 5 years of my life, it was always me and my two younger sisters.
Okay.
And so, us being placed in foster care, and now it's myself and my two younger brothers, was a very different dynamic than anything I had experienced before. I was concerned about my sisters. I wanted to know right away where they were and what their experience was like. And at the same time, I'm observing my younger brothers. I'm concerned about them too. And it seemed like everybody had a hard time with the change of, living in what was a condemned house with an open door, and your mother's always there, to now you're in a place where you don't know anybody. And so my first placement consisted of a woman who, she had another family. Well, she had her biological family rather, that lived upstairs, and she had us downstairs. And so, she told us to call her auntie. Don't call her mom, call her auntie. She let us know that I'm not here to be your forever parent. That's not who I'm going to be in your life. I hope that you do the best you can here. But if you don't, then you're gonna have to move. And she would give us essentially the same meal every night for dinner, whether it be a chicken nuggets or a salami sandwich. And it was the cheap type of salami sandwich with the Genoa salami instead of the hard salami. And it was the off-brand mayonnaise instead of the Miracle Whip that I was used to. I know a lot of people don't eat Miracle Whip, by the way, but that's what I was used to. And so it was just that was just a big part of my experience I never forgot. Like, why was she giving us this same meal every night, And a lot of the times she would go upstairs and have what I consider to be her real dinner meal with her biological family. So they will be upstairs eating whatever the real course was, whether it be, steak, pork chops, chicken salad, whatever they might have made. And I could just hear them upstairs celebrating. And I'm sitting downstairs with my brothers with no explanation as to why we're going through what we're going through. And, just constantly eating the same meal every night. And me and my younger brother, we both went to some pretty tough schools where you really had to fend for yourself. My brother was more, he was a bit more of a hands-on fighter than I was. He was a very tough guy. I admire him for that, even at a young age. And he got into fights quite often. And once my brother got into enough fights, she decided that, she had it up to her limit and that it was time for us to move. And so we moved seemingly overnight. They told us, hey, listen, you're just going to go and visit this family, and, we'll pick you up on Monday. Well, we went to go visit the family, and it turns out we were actually moving with this family. So I'm thinking we're going to visit, but we were actually moving in with this family. Now, this is our second foster home. And this woman said to us, call me mom. Don't call me anything else but mom. You call me anything else but mom, it's going to be a problem. And I was kind of smitten by that request because, I was still thinking about my biological mom and her promise of taking us out of the system. When we would go on visitation with my biological mom, her conversation was always, just stay strong, take care of each other. I'm gonna do what I have to do to get y'all out of here. And so this woman in particular, telling us outright, call me mom, was a little bit of, it was a little bit off-putting for me. But this woman turned out to be abusive in a way that I had never really experienced before. Now, don't get me wrong. I had experienced abuse before I went into the foster care system, but not quite as consistently as I did here. And what even impacted me more was when my younger brother, you know, would get when he would get beat, you know, when he would get abused, it would impact me, because here I am supposed to be, you know, some sort of a protector, but I can't protect my brother when you call him into your room, you know, and you punch him in the face, or you choking him to the floor. If I'm 7, then my little brother he's 4, you know, and he's getting his nose busted. He's getting choked to the floor. I decided on one particular night that I no longer could I lay in the top bunk and listen to my younger brother get abused. And so I went to school the next day, and I told the counselor what was happening at home, and that, you know, we could not go back home there, you know. So they called our caseworker, and our caseworker agreed. Hey, listen, okay, so we'll take y'all out and we'll put y'all in another placement. So that the same day that I told the social workers what was going on, we got placed into a new home because I advocated for that. You know, they wanted to send us home and, you know, do an investigation. I said, no, you can't send us home tonight. You know, my brother and me and my other younger brother will be getting beat tonight. You can't send us back there tonight. And so they sent us to another home where our foster mother said, listen, I'm a businesswoman. I'm not here. I'm not here to put up with you to the end of the levee. You will be leaving my home if you cause too much drama. And at that point, we were nowhere near model citizens, myself or my brothers. While we were in the previous home, my biological mother passed away, and she threatened not to take us to our mother's funeral. When we got to the funeral, we got to see a lot of family members we hadn't seen in years prior. But it was just very traumatic for our mother to pass away while we were in foster care. You know, I think that kind of that had a major impact on us psychologically, because at that moment our lives could never return to the way that they were. You know, for myself and my brothers and sisters, our life could never return the same after that. And so I feel that we all, myself included, definitely we saw that as a traumatic event, basically. And so when we moved into this new lady's home, who was sort of like, you know, I'm all business, do what you got to do, or you're going to have to move. It's like, lady, I'm a wreck right now. You know, I'm a wreck. My little brothers are a wreck. And I knew that we wouldn't be there for long. And so we weren't. Now, this was a placement where I learned a little bit about the value of entrepreneurship. She was a business owner, and, you know, just having your life together. This was the first woman I ever met who I also lived with, who had her own business. She had her own home. You know, she had 1 acre in her backyard, you know, a whole acre. Deer ran across her backyard. And it was just a nice arrangement in the suburbs. That was new for me. And eventually, after about 7 or 8 months, you know, and I remember during this time, you know, I would make phone calls to people, and I would ask them, I would say, hey, can you take us out of foster care and adopt us? You know, it's me and my 2 younger brothers. Can you take us out of foster care and adopt us? And everybody told us no, for one reason or another. Everybody told us no. I'll never forget that. And it seemed like after all of our options were exhausted, my sisters told us that the family that they were living with was just a great family that was giving them a awesome experience. And they said, hey, you guys should see if you could become a part of this family as well. And I told my social worker, you know, my sister said that they're having a good experience in the family that they're in. Maybe you could see if there's somebody over there that'd be willing to take us. And so incidentally, that's where we ended up going next. And so she found a relative in the same family as my sisters for us to move into. And when it came time for us to leave this particular home, we moved into this family where my sisters were. Now, my sisters in this family lived around the corner. My sisters lived around the corner, and we were living with their foster mother's sister.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, because she told everybody, she said, hey, listen, I'm cooking right now. I'll talk to y'all in a minute. Everybody have a seat in the living room. So I'm sitting in the living room and I'm thinking, what sorts of promises is this lady gonna make to us tonight? Who is she gonna tell us that she is? And what is she gonna tell us about where she's gonna take us? And, you know, how she's gonna change our lives? And I'm thinking, because at this point I'm thinking I can look at an adult and I can pretty much make a educated silhouette of who they are. And she called everybody to the table and she gave everybody a pork chop. And then she handed me a basket of French fries. I thought to take a couple fries and to pass the basket, but she stopped me before I could pass that basket. She said, Cedric, that entire basket of fries is yours. She said, I see that you're a growing teenager. Teenagers need to eat. I don't know what your experience was like before you came here, but we eat in this house. We feed everybody properly. And all I ask that you do is take care of your business in school, be respectful, and everything's going to be all right. And maybe that moment didn't mean the world to her. Like maybe she didn't realize how big of a gesture that was to me. But for me, having had all these different experiences around food, whether it been the repetitive meal I had in one place, or the lady who was cooking chicken with cake batter in the other place, all these places, I just, one of the biggest running themes was the types of food that we ate along the way. And so for her to give me this basket of fries, it just represented so much for me. It represented stability, it represented love, it represented emotional intelligence, and it just opened me up to wanting to really build a genuine relationship with her. The type of relationship that the social workers are asking you to build with somebody. You like, man, I don't know these people. I'm not about to act good here, and the social worker is like, what the social worker is trying to figure out what she can get you to realize, in order for you to really give somebody a fair shot at a good relationship. And that's what she did to me with that basket of French fries. I was like, hey, I love you already, and we really never turned back. But I couldn't be adopted into this family. It's a plot twist. I couldn't be adopted into this family for technical reasons. And my younger brothers actually got adopted into a different family. But for me, looking at my teenage years, my desire to have some sort of stability into my teenage years, I know it's time for me to start growing up. I can't keep moving around. And even though all this stuff is not up to me, it's not under my authority, I'm going to advocate to stay with this family. So I told my social worker, I said, listen, I don't want to move with this new family that's coming along to adopt us. I want to stay right here. And I want to see if we can figure out a way for me to be adopted into this family. And my foster mother, the same one who gave me the basket of French fries, she said, I'll look for a way for you to be adopted into this family. And she called her daughter, who I had a relationship with. This is Yolanda I'm talking about, and asked her if she would be willing to adopt me. Now, Yolanda had a totally separate life living in Cincinnati. She didn't have to take me from Cleveland, bring me down to Cincinnati and adopt me, but she did. And that's why when I talk about the years of my life from, 15, 16, and 17 and forward, I mean, it's a whole nother life from what I had experienced prior.
Right.
So when I got adopted and moved to Cincinnati, my life was different. I was the only child at that point. I was the only child. So that was different. I'm in a new city, a nice neighborhood, full of middle-class working folks, a lot of people that look like me. And I had an opportunity to go to a high quality school with high quality programs and get involved in some high quality competition, which really set the tone for who I became as a man.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I use this analogy of nuggets and breadcrumbs that eventually build a loaf of bread or so forth. But you can clearly, through your story and through your experiences, see that there was certain nuggets and certain breadcrumbs that was dropped, whether negative or positive, that eventually ironed out to be a loaf of bread to make you who you are today as a man. And I believe that whether our experiences are good or bad, we all have that kind of same experience where there's split moments where they're highlighted in our memory, and we make decisions further in our future on those moments. And that's so inspiring. That despite the odds, you were able to open yourself up and be vulnerable and adopt the situation, because nobody would have fought at you You know, if you would have like,
Yeah.
I'm tired of all these people trying to play parent, you know,
Yep.
I'm
That's
tired
right.
of all this other stuff going on. I'ma just do me. You know, I'm here, you know, you here, it's your house, but look, I know I'm gonna be gone the next day. So
Right.
nobody would have fought at you if that would have been your mindset, you know,
Mhm.
but you chose a different route. And that's so inspiring, you know. And I know I have a couple, you know, foster and adoptive parents that listen, and I'm pretty sure, you know, that was inspiring for them too. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I talk with most of the people that hop on my podcast about these next couple particular subjects,
Okay.
and I do this because, you know, my goal in mind is to be able to show focus on the stigmas and labels surrounded around them. So I guess, you know, my question as I formulated is, you know, mental health. You know, there's
Mm.
a lot of stigmas and labels that's faced around that, and the foster care community, and just, you know, us as humans, you know, you know, not really taking care of it, or in any aspect of that. What did that look like for you growing up, and what does it look like for you now as a professional, you know, in your field?
Mental health was a big deal for me throughout my entire journey because first and foremost, I was trying to figure out what it meant to be a man at a young age.
Mhm.
My grandmother would always have me take phone calls from my uncles who were in jail at the time, and they would always tell me to do push-ups. They would always tell me to do push-ups. Uh, don't be overly emotional. Don't do too much crying and just do push-ups. And so at that time, I'm thinking that being a man means doing a bunch of push-ups. And as I got older and I listened to different callous adults, I came to think at around the age of 7 years old that being a man meant to take pain. And so I used to take the iron and I would burn myself on my arm with the iron. And I
Mhm.
would try to see how long I could hold the iron, the hot iron on my arm without moving it to see how far out along I was progressing in my manhood. And I remember one time my auntie came to visit and she saw the burns all over my arm and she asked me what was I doing, and I told her I was burning my arm to make myself into a man. And she said that's not the way that you become a man. And shortly thereafter we were placed in foster care where I'm in schools that are they're dangerous,
Mhm.
and I'm having this choice of whether a man is somebody who hurts people who wants to hurt him, or is a man somebody who takes the high route to save their life. Because I could have easily gone to my middle school, which was a potentially violent middle school on any day of the week, and I could have lost my life in that middle school if my attitude was I'm going to hurt who wants to hurt me. But I decided that I needed to take the high road. I need to graduate middle school. I need to graduate high school. I need to make my life worth living, because if I don't save my life, then nobody else will. If I don't make my life a positive example, then who's going to be a positive example for my brothers and sisters? And so at that moment, my mind began to change about impressing my peers, and it began to myelinate around being an effective model for my brothers and sisters. And so I had to make the sacrifice of not always looking cool and not always uh being the center of cool attention, because I had to really pay attention to my schoolwork. I had to, get out of the social cipher, you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
really get busy with my schoolwork. And so a lot of the time that left me, in an isolated position where people say, "Oh, Cedric, he want to be so smart. He want to know so much. He always want to, be Johnny on the spot with the information." But it wasn't never about that type of attention. For me, I was trying to save my life, and I was trying to demonstrate for my brothers and sisters that we could be successful despite what we had went through. Sure, I wanted to be the class clown. Sure, I wanted to figure out how to get my hustle on and, garner a couple $1,000s in middle school. Sure, I wanted to be that guy, but I realized that my life had to serve a higher purpose. And so one thing that I think about mental health is that especially for youth in the child welfare system, we are actively rearranging our minds for survival.
Mm,
And I just think that that is such an adult thing to have to do, you know, adjusting your mentality on the cuff, on the fly, on the run, if you will. You know, a 10-year-old changing his mind about what it means to be a man and being present for that conversation within himself is where I was without a whole lot of male mentors and without having my biological father in my life. You know, it was tough. And so I would say that my mental health at that moment was it was in jeopardy, because one faulty thought by myself or one faulty influence could have resulted in me being placed in jail, you know, or losing my life. But thankfully, I held on to what my grandmother taught me, which was to iron my slacks, keep family first, keep school first. My mother taught me to take care of my brothers and sisters. And, you know, it was lessons like those that really got me into my teenage years, you know, but it was always mental health that I needed to keep a hold of, because when I was able to finally get my father on the phone, this was the only conversation I ever had with him. And I did research behind my mother's back, and she always reminds me of this. And I did this research behind her back to find out who my father was. And when I finally got on the phone with him, he said, "Me and your mother, we took a paternity test, and I'm not your father." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry for wasting your time." And I hung up. The phone call was only about 20 seconds. And my mother wasn't even home from work at the time. This is my adoptive mother. She wasn't even home. But when I hung up that phone with him, you know, something broke in me when this man told me that he wasn't my father. I felt like I would never know my father. I felt like I would never have conclusive answers as to what it meant to be a man. And I felt like, you know, why not rebel? Why not just unravel? Nobody's ever gonna really show me how to stand up the way I want to stand up. One thing about living in the environment I was living in at 15 was I got to meet several young men who had fathers in their lives. I could see the difference between a young man who had a father in his life and a young man who had and had not had fathers in their lives. And I didn't like the fact that I was on the side of not having a father in my life. I didn't like it at all. And so, you know, my mental health in those years, I would say, you know, they needed a particular type of attention, because I was good academically. I was good academically. I knew how to dress. I knew how to present myself. But deep down inside, I struggled with an obstacle of how am I going to become a man without a father? And so I began to identify with elements of my past that I just saw adults do. And one of those things, and I'm going to bring it directly back to mental health, because one of the things that I started getting into at the age of 17, going into 18, was alcoholism. I felt like I felt like being being a man now. I hadn't quite lost this abusive mentality of how I'm supposed to be treating myself as a man. So when I was younger, I thought being a man was burning myself with the iron and, you know, taking that pain. But in 17 and 18 years old, I'm thinking that, you know, a man is somebody who's allowed to drink. You know, I'm a man, so I can drink.
mhm.
And my mental health really became a focal point for me, because I would spend the the next uh the next 8 years of my life trying to eliminate alcoholism as a factor in my overall well-being.
Wow, wow. Such a testament there, you know.
Mhm.
um, I ask that question a lot, and you know, I get so many different versions of it. And just a couple of things that stood out to me was, you know, the struggle of trying to figure out what manhood meant, you know,
Yeah.
what being a man meant, you know, and how that weighed on your identity and
Mhm.
your person, you know.
Mhm.
That's a struggle I went through myself, you know. when I do speaking events and all these different things, and I think when we were talking last on your show, I
Mhm.
said it. I learned how to be a man from TV. From watching,
Wow.
different people on TV and stuff like that. And I still think there's a lot of facets that I had to learn by just hard lessons, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
But opening the door for a woman,
Mhm.
being a
Mhm.
gentleman, I modeled like what I saw on TV, and I thought that was what it meant, So um, I think that's a deep thing there, and it's a hard thing, and if I can say, for Black males in the child welfare system, it's a very difficult thing, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
um, very difficult things because there's a lot of us
Mhm.
without fathers, and another thing that resonated with me in my story, to bring it back, and I'm going to go to my next question after this is. You reached out to your dad, and I remember a distinct thing in my story when the courts tried to reach out to my dad to the point where the court system could not get a hold of him by any phone or anything like that. They wrote in the newspaper to get
Mm.
him to come to court, and nothing, nothing. I'm 24 years old now, and
Mhm.
got everything going, just never heard anything, or nothing like that. And I can say now, it is it's still a challenging thing to know that, I have a father out there that know of me, but I don't know of him. That's
Mm.
something I can say as a man.
Yeah.
That is a challenging thing. It is on the back of my mind with my mental health, along with other things that I take care of.
Right.
So I appreciate you sharing that, and the vulnerability and honesty with that. I kind of want to get into this last couple bits. Is how did you become the Cedric Riley of today?
Well, it starts with mentors that I was able to obtain as I graduated high school. I was fortunate to have a godmother in my life, who is a very prominent woman in society today. She is in the health tech space. Also had auntie who had high expectations of me. She's also a very prominent woman in our society today. In addition to my mom, who really they put me in a position to get several key mentors as a high school senior. Even though I was in the midst of my my major flaw, which I'm talking about, they still imparted some really good information in me. Now, I had a gentleman in my life. His name was Mark Hatcher, and Mark Hatcher is one of the smartest gentlemen I ever met. And I mean smart in a sturdy, solid, non-debatable type of way. Like he he was an incredible human being. And he pulled me to the side. He pulled me to the side and he said, "Young man, I want you to lift your hat up over your brows, because when you wear your hat over your brow, then you look intimidating, and you never want to look intimidating in this society. You want to be approachable, and you want to have something positive to offer people." And outside of that, he said to me after a brief conversation, "Never do anything that doesn't align with your goals." He said, "I don't care what job you take, if it's a minimum wage job, if you're volunteering, anything that you do, it should be in alignment with your goals." And so, lessons like that gave me an attitude that no matter where I go in my life and what I do, it's going to be in alignment with my goals. So everything I've done since high school, when I first told my mom I want to be a motivational speaker, it's all been in alignment with the same goal, which
Mhm.
was to make a difference first in the life of my brothers and sisters, in my own life, make my family proud, and extending that out into the community. Everything that I've done in this time frame has been toward that vision. And so my idea of what it means to be a man now, it starts with accountability and the reality that you're not going to be the best speaker that you can be. You're not going to be the best model that you can be. You're not going to be your greatest form if you don't deal with your flaw. What I understand today as a man, as a result of those lessons that I got from my mentors, including my mom, was that once you overcome your flaw, then you can move into who you are truly meant to be. But not until then. You won't accomplish, you will not accomplish the thing that you set out to accomplish unless you deal with yourself first. So it was accountability. And even though I continue to have, accomplishments, I continue to do things, I had to disassemble alcoholism in my life. I had to break it down. I had to let people know that this was something that I was dealing with. I had to get involved in conversations, spiritual conversations that could really help me to get out of that space and to really overcome alcoholism. So, it's all intertwined, how I got to where I am today, because I don't get here today without overcoming alcoholism. And I want to say to each and every person out there who might be listening to this podcast that we all have a flaw. This is inside and outside of foster care. It doesn't matter if you were in foster care or not. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Everybody has a flaw. And what I'm giving from my life experience is that you don't become your greatest form until you deal with your flaw. And so I don't get here today without conquering alcoholism. Today, I'm over 4 years completely sober. And I feel that there are 3 phases in life. The survival phase, which is your experience based on the choices that your parents made. I'm talking about, up to 5 to 7 years old, you're just surviving. Even up through high school, you're just surviving. Even if it was a great experience and everybody was wealthy and everything was well, you're still just surviving through the choices that your parents made. But then you have an opportunity to become a success. Right. So when I first started speaking, I wasn't successful because I started speaking at the age of 17. I wasn't successful because I had a website and a brochure and a business that was rolling at 17. I had an opportunity to become successful in lieu of those positive choices that I was making and that people were helping me to make, if I was able to deal with my flaw. And this is what each and every person out there in the world has an opportunity to do. Okay, you got the window of success, whether that be that you're gainfully employed or if you have an entrepreneurial endeavor, you have an opportunity to become successful. But in order for you to become gainfully successful, you have to deal with your flaw. Now, for me, it was alcoholism. But what's your flaw? I want everybody out there in the audience, think about what's your flaw. Be honest. In the solace and peace of your mind, what is your flaw? What's the elephant in your room? It's time for you to tell that elephant to move. Time for you to tell the boogeyman it's time to go. Time for you to kick that problem out of your space. For some people, it might be anger. Some people's major flaw is anger. You need to make anger the priority in your life in terms of what needs to be dealt with, what needs to be learned about, and what needs to be removed. I understand today that a large majority of people, they deal with some form of trauma from their past. A lot of people, they deal with alcoholism, they deal with substance abuse issues, they deal with, mental health issues. And inside of each of those things is something that we need to work on. And once we work on those things, then we gain access to the actual final form, which is greatness. So there's 3 phases in life: survival, and then success. If you overcome your flaw, this is what 95% of people don't do. They don't overcome their flaw. Most people, they end up finding a way to get by in life. They get a job or two, they start a family, or they somehow they become wealthy, they slip through the cracks, so to speak, and they never deal with that flaw. And so they never break through to greatness because your flaw always keeps you in a position lower than where you're actually destined to be. And so if you're actually able to deal with your flaw, identify it and attack it, get help, learn about it, read a book about it, get into a program, find a mentor, get a coach, then you gain access to the greatness phase. And I'm in the beginning of the greatness phase of my life today as a man.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was very powerful. Wow. Wow. Identify your flaw, tackle your flaw, you know. Yes. And you ain't got to do it by yourself. You don't have to do it by yourself. You know, more times than not, when you're in that stage, you stepping out and you like trying to figure out stuff, there are people that's willing to help you, you know. There's supports, you know, there's resources and so forth. So, you know, sometimes us as people, we are prideful. We don't know how to ask for help, or we feel like by asking for help, that somehow puts us in a weird position. I'm here to tell you, you got to get over that, because as adults, you know, in this adulting world and in life, you know, in general, we need each other.
Yep.
You know, and I'm pretty sure most of us are seeing that more than not with, you know, this pandemic. You know, we need each other.
That's right.
Know, so that was very powerful, and I appreciate that. Man, my last couple things, you know, for you. What advice could you give to young professionals that's trying to get out there and, you know, do their dream and so forth, you know, and then what advice could you give to foster care youth and alumni?
For the young professionals out there, I would say that self-preservation is key. You want to make sure that you can provide a certain level of tenacity, a certain level of creativity, a certain level of energy and perspective. And what that's going to require is for us to do our best to eat right. We've got to do our best to eat right, if not eat better. We got to give some effort into being physically active. And we have to get in that mirror and do the personal work of dealing with our flaws. There are a lot of young professionals that they face challenges that stem from their personal flaws, and they don't always acknowledge that it stems from their personal flaws. Sometimes, you know, you have a problem with a coworker, or you have a problem with a superior. But at some point, we all have to take that same accountability that I was talking about earlier. Identify your flaw. This is the personal work that you do in your home, and you work on it. If you work on it quietly, it's better than not working on it at all. If you work on it out loud, that's your choice, right? And I hope and I will that you get support for that. But the young professional should make sure that they're doing the personal intra work that grants them the longevity of a 50 and 60-year legacy. The foster parents and the social workers and the people who catalyze the child welfare space should be on the lookout for fresh ideas around paradigm change. People like myself, who you know, I'm somebody who's offering new ideas of what we can do in a child welfare space. Be on the lookout for those. You know, there are a lot of people such as yourself who have come out of the child welfare system and are now America's next motivators. Youth who've grown out of the child welfare system, who are making positive choices in their lives. Look around. They're America's next motivators. That's who they are. You pull up any list of the greatest Americans in history, several of them, a lot of them have been through the foster care system. And so for those people who are professionals in child welfare, I would say be on the lookout for people with lived experience who have dynamic ideas and dynamic programs and curricula that can shift the paradigm of your organization for the better. For the young people out there, for the youth, people who are in the experience, what I would say is get your hands on a book if it suits you. Get yourself into a conversation about adulthood. if you are more of a verbal communicator, but begin to set your sights on where you want to be in your life. You have to forecast it yourself. You have to predict it yourself. You have to be the first person who says what you're going to be and how you're going to be it. Because what I understand in foster care is that nobody is going to say, hey, oh my God, you're so-and-so's child. You're meant to be one of the greats. You belong on center stage. You're gonna be out of this world in your endeavors. Nobody is really committed to saying that to you out of their mouth. And so you've got to do it. The young person in the child welfare system has to say it out of their mouth, who they're going to be and how they're going to be it. Predict that in your life. Forecast that in your life. That way you're giving yourself something to aspire to. You've got to be a positive reflection onto yourself. And I think that's what is really up to young people in the child welfare system. You know, becoming a positive reflection to themselves. Don't be an abuser of yourself. You know, several times out of 10, young people who are in the child welfare system are going to be abusers to themselves, just like I was. You're abusing yourself. And if you're not abusing yourself, that's excellent. Attach your energy to a goal, a forecast that you're making on your life, and make sure that the things that you do, just like my mentor told me, they align with your goals. If you are in an abusive relationship with yourself, I ask you to find a mentor, find a book around your flaw. If you're able to identify your flaw, like I said, maybe your flaw is anger. Maybe your flaw is some other topic that I'm unable to speak on right now because we don't have but so much time. But do the work of becoming a positive reflection to yourself. And I know that sometimes things like that sounds easier said than done, but I can tell you at 11 years old that I got in the mirror myself and told myself, you're not ugly, you're not incapable, you're not less than, you can be great. Every day is a new day. I told that to myself at 11 years old. I would go into the mirror and undo the jokes. I would get in that mirror and undo the condescending remarks. I would get in that mirror and undo all of the disparaging comments or narratives that were placed on me. And that's what I'm asking young people in the system to do today. Find yourself a mirror, get in it, undo all the negatives that don't help, and tell yourselves things that generate positive images in your life. To make it even more simple as to what you can do, get physical. If you can, get physical. So one of the things that I decided to do was run. I'm big into running, and I'm actually demonstrating the relationship between running and relationship building through a 5K in the month of May. It's called America's Next Motivator 5K. This is happening in Columbus, Ohio. And so get out there and run, everybody. I'm doing a foster care awareness 5K, and look for that. You can find it online at America's Next Motivator 5K. You could also contact me on social media at Cedric Speaks on Instagram, at Cedric Speaks on Facebook, at Cedric Riley on Facebook to find more about this. Or you can visit my website at www.cedricriley.org, www.motivatefosterkids.com, or you can email me at cedricspeaks@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you for that. You know, guys, stay tuned. Stay tuned. You know, Cedric is far from done. You know, so just please stay tuned and watch out for him and what's next and so forth. And please show support. You know, he's been there. You know, he supported me in my story and so forth. And look, I'm doing my podcast, so you know, share the love and so forth. But you know, this is Resilient Voices and Beyond. You know, thank you guys for tuning in. You know, it's routine for me, you know, to say this, but COVID is out there. Please be safe. Please have precaution. Not going to get political or anything like that. But if you're thinking about getting vaccinated or whichever, do your research. Look it up. Make that decision. If you're not vaccinated, that's your decision. That's your choice. But please, keep in mind, use precaution. Sanitize, but no, you can't keep sanitizing. Go and wash your hands, after you did it a couple times and stuff like that. It takes a village. It takes us working together to be able to conquer this thing. COVID may not ever go away, but as long as we're doing what we need as a unit, as together, as a nation, we can be all right. So please stay safe out there. And lastly, have a great night. Have a great evening. Have a great whenever you listening to you. This is Resilient Voices and Beyond, and thank you guys for listening.